Okay. Oh, what time? 10. Yeah. Okay. Um, that's interesting. Hmm. Well, maybe I would put this in another. Hmm. Okay, looks good. Okay, I'm recording.
Okay, so we'll go back to introductions of everybody. But before we do that, just so that Max doesn't have to hang out longer than necessary. Max, if you don't know, Leslie and Julie is our code enforcement officer, and he's agreed in the summer to give us a monthly update on issues, and then quarterly after that. And we missed him last month because we canceled our meeting. So Max, what do you got?
So I have a presentation for you guys, and this is going to be from January 1st to March 31st, which is quarter one of this year, and then quarter two, which is April 1st to June 30th. I just have to share my screen. Is my screen shared?
Yep.
Yep. Oh, perfect, perfect, Max.
Great. So this is just from, I have it split up into two. So the first half, it'll be the first quarter, and then the second half will be the second quarter. And it's going to show the dates of the calls that I went on, and then I will tell you guys the outcome of it. The first one, these are the calls I dealt with: parking, lights, animal safety, camping, and the compliance checks that I do.
Max, can I stop you for just a sec? I'm sorry. I just heard from Danielle and she can't find the link, so I am going to get her the link, and I can't do that and listen at the same time.
You're all
Let's see.
good. You're all good.
Okay.
No worries.
Just give me one second.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, all right, we're done. No, I'm just kidding. That was weird. Okay, perfect. So for quarter one, these are the calls that I dealt with: parking, lights, animal safety, camping vehicles, and I did compliance checks. So this is going to be the outline of the whole presentation. I'm going to give you the date, what the call was, and then the action I took. So on the 4th of March, I self-initiated a parking call. There were 3 cars parked in a bike lane and ended up being at one of the short-term rentals. And I went up to the front door and contacted them, and they were able just to move everything. And that same day, there was a light complaint that I had to field. At the time, the short-term rental ordinance had a light part to it, and regarding shielded lights and how long lights can be on for. And the complaint was the lights weren't pointed down, they were outwards projecting that way. And I contacted the local agent. The local agent took care of it within the hour. I got an animal call. Someone called me and stated that they were walking with a child and a dog ran up on them. And it was located at one of the short-term rentals on that street. I contacted the short-term rental and asked them about the dog and if they had seen it or if it was theirs. And they had the same problem earlier that day with that dog, and it wasn't their dog. And I was not able to actually locate that dog at that time. Excuse me. There was a safety one. Safety can kind of go with construction too. So what happened was someone used the online complaint form regarding the unsafe environment they were staying at, which included the walkway up to their front door not being completed with construction. It was just skeleton. And there were nails and a whole bunch of construction debris all over the yard. So it was relatively unsafe. Contacted the local agents and the owner of the house regarding that. And that ended up being a strike on their property. And within a year, if they get 2 more, they might have their license revoked. I had a camping vehicle. I was driving and I saw a camper on the back of a truck that was plugged in. And I just contacted them, excuse me, and let them know of the city ordinance. And they took down everything and didn't camp in the vehicle for the rest of the time. And then I did compliance checks, which compliance checks again are, I picked 10 random houses for the week, and I will check the advertisements online and in person, meaning looking for the sign that says that they are short-term rental. I'll look for garbage if it's strung out across the yard, and then I'll look for parking too, if they're blocking any driveways, fire hydrants, overflow parking or anything like that, where they exceed the number of cars they're allowed. Now we're going into quarter two. Quarter two, it dealt with parking, lights, and then dark sky went into effect. Garbage, noise, and did some compliance checks as well. For parking, the one parking call that I got, I arrived, someone submitted something on the online complaint form. I arrived and all the vehicles besides 2 in the driveway were gone. So it was gone on arrival. For light / dark sky, I have it / that because dark sky went into effect. I can't remember the exact date, but it went into for the new ordinance that we have. So the first one, there was a complaint about a light, a short-term rental light shining instead of being down. They were pointed out going that way. I was unable to locate the light, and it was not a short-term rental. The second one was the lights weren't pointed down. And then I just contacted the local agent and they fixed that very quickly. And then the next one was unshielded lights, and they were on for too long, or not too long, but no one was using them while they were on, and they were bright. And they are unshielded, but the short-term rental is about to have an inspection, so they have to pass inspection before they can get their license renewed. And so that was their timeline to fix the lights, was by their next reinspection. I had a couple garbage calls. The first one, when I arrived, there was no garbage. I was unable to locate any. The one on the 9th, I was self-initiated. I saw that and it was just strung out all across a bike lane, Manzanita. And I contacted the local agent and they went and fixed it immediately. On the 26th, there was someone called me and let me know that there was trash in the yard somewhere, and the short-term rental had one of those relatively small garbage cans, and so I went to the local agent and let them know that their garbage can will get full extremely quick, and maybe going to the next size up would be better. And that house, I believe, got a new garbage can because of that reason, because it was getting strung out across the yard, and the crows are pretty smart, and raccoons. And then lastly, there was a complaint that their trash was full when they arrived at the short-term rental. And so I went and talked to the local agent, and the local agent immediately went and cleared out the trash and created room for them because they had a dumpster. I did have a noise complaint. It happened. It got reported to me the day after. The report was these kids were being really loud in the hot tub, and it went on for I think around 2 a.m. is what was said. And she made an in-person contact with me at the police department and explained the situation. I immediately went over to the short-term rental and explained to them the noise ordinance, and they did not make any noise that following night. And they were very respectful and understood, and didn't realize they were being that loud. And I just educated them on what our ordinance says for short-term rentals, and then that we have a citywide excuse me, ordinance for noise. And then for compliance checks, there were 500 of those. I forgot to put on here that I did get one advertisement that had no MCA number, and then I just contacted the local agent, and they fixed it within the day. For quarter one, there were 5 total STR complaints, and then quarter 2, there was 9. I think that's all she wrote.
I have a couple questions, but I wonder if anybody else does.
I do
Yeah, if
too.
you can unshare Max, and then we can see everybody in big.
Yeah. Stop share.
There we go. Hey, and we got Michael. And
Yay.
Daniel. Yay. So we'll get back to the beginning after we'll start over, but we started with Max. Who's got questions?
I have
Okay,
questions.
Linda, go ahead.
Well, let's let Phil go ahead.
Okay.
Max, were any of these repeat offenders?
There was one of the garbage ones was one of them was gone on arrival when I showed up, and then a couple complaints later, it was that house.
But in general, you're getting a good response with regards to curing whatever the problem is.
Yes, sir.
Kudos for your report.
Thank you.
Linda?
So my questions are along the same line. It sounds like you have pretty strong relationships with the agencies. It sounds like they respond pretty quickly to your requests for help.
Yes, they have been great. The ones that I've had to talk to, they have been very, very responsive, and I've developed good relationships with them.
Great. How often and how do you go about finding non-licensed short-term rentals?
So I can go online, and we have a software that kind of skims the internet for that. That's been a big tool too for looking for MCA numbers. And so if I don't see the license numbers, that's kind of an indication that it might be a suspicious rental. But I use the software online. That helps too, because it goes from Craigslist all the way to Airbnb. I heard something called iKey recently. So it skims everything on the internet that is a short-term rental application, I would say.
All right, and what happens if a citizen believes that a house is a short-term rental, but it's not licensed? Uh, how would you deal with that kind of complaint?
So I've gotten a couple of those within the last couple of months. What I do is I just keep that house on my radar, and I will make a route and check on it throughout the day. There are a couple of houses that are on that I've been watching for a while that are possibly illegal STRs.
And you do that by checking with them when people are there, or how do you go about determining that?
Yeah, so usually a complaint is brought to my attention first. Someone might say, "Hey, 123 might be illegal rental." I'll go, "Okay, I'll keep an eye on it," and then I'll track vehicles that are there. If I can talk to somebody, I will. But I just keep notes on it.
Okay, great. One of the things that has come up from the community pretty often are the larger short-term rentals and the fact that they, just by virtue of their size, have a lot of people, often kids. Um, is that something that you're running into? I mean, is there any specific issue that you see more often? Is there any focus on and I don't need to know the house, but a house that is pretty typical or that gets a routine complaint?
Um, I haven't experienced that yet. Um, I would say the only repeat complaint was regarding garbage at a house. But I haven't gotten a house that's been repeatedly in violation for noise or anything like that. Just that the two garbage complaints was the repeat house.
Okay. I noticed you handed out one penalty, and obviously 3 penalties in your out is pretty severe. So
Mhm.
it sounds to me like it takes a lot to give a short-term rental a penalty. You did have one. Was that what caused you to give that house a penalty?
It was a very unsafe environment. So with the house, there was only one way to get in. It had a couple of doors. Once you got into the house, you could use those doors, but because it's a short-term rental, those doors were locked. Um, the front door didn't have a staircase anymore because they were fixing it. And then there were just 2x4s that were aligned, and the drop off from the front door was probably about 1.5 feet. So if you were to, I mean, I would probably forget when you're just walking out the door, and you step out and you fall. I mean, it's going to be a tumble, and you're going to fall onto construction nails, screws.
And this
It
was a
was,
complaint. This was a
yeah,
complaint from the renter.
from the renter. Yep. And it was, I take safety pretty seriously, and
Good.
that was, it was not good. And there were pictures that were submitted, um, and I believe the correct step next was to put a strike on their property.
Well, I'm certain we all agree with it. That was pretty crazy. The last question I have, Max, is I think all of us think you're doing just a fantastic job.
Thank
And
you.
and part of your job, which you talked about today, is the educational part, getting out and making sure people understand the regulations and ordinances. And you really do that in a very friendly but firm way, and we really appreciate that. Is there anything that you see the short-term rental committee could do to make your job easier, to help you with something that you see as an issue, but you don't have any recourse at this point? or just anything that we could do to support you in what you're doing?
You know, I think things have been really good so far. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything, but I'm always willing to contact you if something pops up. One of my things that I do is I like things posted to the website, and so I will just I can't do that. I have to ask somebody else to do it. So I'll print off a whole bunch of you know, for example, like dark sky. I'll print off what's acceptable per the dark sky ordinance, and then I'll hand that out to people if they have questions. I just try and be a resource for people. So if they have questions about what's okay, what's not okay, I like showing pictures. It makes me learn a little bit better. So I would say if anything popped up, I would definitely contact you. But maybe posting things onto the short-term rental tab with I guess the dark sky ordinance is citywide now. I'm thinking about it, but if anything pops up, I will definitely contact you. I think things have been great right now.
So two things on that. First of all, I think your idea of putting it on the website is excellent because it's something people are always asking about. The second thing is the city council has a frequently asked questions that's on the website. And if you would send that your information to me, I'll make sure it gets on the website under frequently asked questions. So there could be
Perfect.
two places that it could be. And I think that's a great idea.
Great.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
What are the consequences to illegal short-term rentals?
It can range to quite a bit. Off the top of my head, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but not advertising when you're supposed to, I believe, is upwards of $1,000 fine, and it's per day. So if I find out on Monday and it continues on till Friday, I mean, there's $5,000 right there. And there's a couple of others, and off the top of my head, I don't want to give the wrong amount or the wrong information, but it can add up pretty quickly from fines of 500 because we have Class C, Class B, and Class A. Class C is 500, a Class C is 750, and then a Class A is 1,000, and it ranges in between those three. So it can become pretty expensive. I know a couple of years ago there were some fines got pretty high.
There was a $50,000
Mhm.
settlement fine. It started over several million.
I
Yeah.
remember that one. I remember that.
They're all listed on 10.3 if you really want to delve in. It's in tiny little print underneath each ordinance. It'll say this is a Class C violation. This is a Class
okay.
A, and then it gives the amount.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? I have a couple. By the way, Danielle says she's on her phone and can't figure out how to unmute. And
Wonderful.
you swipe right. I'm guessing it's an iPhone.
Okay,
anybody-
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
It's
yes.
weird. It goes to a screen that says your microphone is unmuted and then it says your video has stopped. So can you see me anymore or no?
No,
No, I can't see you.
no.
That's so funny. Yeah, so when I talk, it takes my face away, which is fine. Since I have this figured out now, Joe, do you mind if I just ask my couple quick questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, thanks for number one to the whole committee for being so flexible, bearing with me, and Joe for sending me text reminders and things of that nature. It's really helpful. So for those of you that don't know, my father's been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and I'm here with him and my family, and so it's a little rocky right now. So thank you so much for all your love and support and understanding through this weird time. But I did have a couple of questions for Max, and you said something about a hot tub and the fact that somebody called. So I'm assuming the guest calls in or puts a form in and complains, but you responded. How come the person that's the contact is not responding to those people?
She came to the police department and just talked to me about it.
Oh, okay. It wasn't like something that was called in after hours and was like you felt
No,
like you
this
had to
was-
respond to it.
No, this was next day. She showed up at the police department.
Gotcha.
I can't recall if she was dropping something off, but just informed me of the situation.
Okay, that makes sense. My second question is, There's a couple of rentals that are very, very close to my shop, and it is a constant parking issue. Constant. And I know this seems silly because I am the owner of a vacation rental company, but what is the best avenue for me to report these are very, very large homes that are on a tight street that have put ping pong tables in their garage. So their garages are no longer being used for parking, which I know is definitely not what was passed on their original inspection. And so there's only 2 in the driveway. Well, they have 4 to 6 cars every time. So they're crowding the street. They're parking on our property. They're parking on neighbors' properties. I've talked to neighbors nearby. I don't know why no one else wants to complain about it, but I'm wondering what the best avenue is for reporting that. Is that just through you? Is that through the form online? What is the best avenue?
I
So it
always
gets
tell
to you.
people, I always try and get people to use the complaint form online.
Okay.
And then I will respond that way. If it's after the time that I work, it's the first thing I'll deal with in the morning.
Okay.
But I
It's never
always try
really
to
been an
recommend-
emergency.
Okay. I would always just recommend the online complaint form.
Okay, thank you. And because neighbors have asked me that as well, because our shop is right there. And so I just want to instruct them in the right way. But okay, that was all the questions I had. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
I have a few. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Hey, I just have a follow-up question to that. Max, can you attach a photo to the online form?
Yes, you can attach a photo and a video, I believe.
Okay, so a person could do that, like Danielle said, if there was a big parking thing and it was later in the evening, if a photo was attached, that would give you a stronger position to have that conversation with folks
Yep.
at a later time. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Of course.
Part of I see as our committee's job is education and publicizing. And as I recall from, I didn't write it down at the time, but I believe there were a total of 14 complaints from January to today. And most of them were garbage. There was one noise. And to me, that's outstanding in terms of STR compliance. And I'm wondering if there is a way that we could get that information out to people. I don't, that would be a staff function, a city decision, but I think that's something to celebrate. And I'd like to see if maybe that can happen. I don't know, Max, if that's a conversation, that would be a conversation for you to have with Layla and the council, but I think it'd be a good thing. My other question, that wasn't a question, I know, but okay, so my first question. If there were 14 complaints about short-term rentals, about how many were there about non-short-term rentals?
I would say it would be equal or more, I would say. I don't have an exact number. I don't have my sheets in front of me or anything.
Right.
So if anything, it would be equal or a little bit more.
Okay.
That was also between January and March too. So like we're starting, it was still in the slow season and things are starting to pick up. And as of July 1st, I've had more complaints too, it feels like, than in the past month. So things are ramping up right now in the next couple of months. Q3 will be a good one for stats too. And it might give a little bit more information with STRs, and I may be able to provide a little bit more accurate number between the two, between city and STR complaints.
When you go online and do your compliance check to make sure that they have their MCA number, which, by the way, Patrick is right, we should call it an STR number because it's confusing. Do you also check occupancy numbers? You know, if they list on the website that they sleep 12 and your occupancy number says 6, do you check that?
I've done that a couple of times with the larger STR homes. I've seen, quite a few cars parked at one of them, and just out of curiosity, I looked up what the occupancy once was. But I didn't know how many people were in the house. I didn't see anybody. I just saw cars. So I had no idea who was in the house, but I would have to look at some of the sheets and look at that, because I have a sheet that tells me the number of cars that are allowed and the occupancy count. And I think it shows the bedrooms too, for that, because I think bedrooms play into the occupancy thing.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I was just wondering if there's a easy way to, I mean, if you can cross-check, the website says they sleep 10 and your list says they sleep 8.
If I ever have any questions, I always go to Chris regarding that, because he's the one that makes the sheets, because he's keeping track of all of it. So every once in a while, I'll find something and it'll go to him. And I think it goes to the IT guy to fix. That would have to go onto the website. So sometimes I find some mistakes, and I have found that before. But yeah.
Hey, Joe, I just have one more question, if that's okay. It's Danielle again. So I just sent Chris a very, very, very long list of houses that are not updated on that form online. So, so when you go to the city website, it tells you who manages what address, what house, or who's the local contact. That is, that's not being updated. So I had about 9 houses that had either sold and switched to management, and it was still listing me as manager, even though the house had been sold and isn't even a rental anymore. So like, I just sent Chris this just like 3 or 4 days ago, because I noticed it looking up something for something else. So you may want to, I know that's not really your job, but at this point, I don't know who to reach out to. I emailed it to Chris, but it's
Danielle?
definitely not being updated.
Danielle, I think I talked to Chris about it the other day, and I believe it's just it's a miscommunication. Chris keeps the list, Josh does the website, and I'm not sure that either one of them knew that the other one was supposed to be doing that list.
Keeping up with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I just think needs to be cleared up.
That's super important, because there's a lot of people that will, that could cause some confusion also for Max. So that's why I brought it up.
Yep.
So Joe, that's in my ballpark to make sure
I think
Josh.
so. Yep, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
Chris thinks it's Josh's job. I'm not sure Josh knows it's his job. And
Okay.
I don't think, I think it was just a miscommunication about who's supposed to keep the list up.
That's easy to fix.
Yeah. Anything else for Max? Max?
Just quick question. I'm just curious about if you see a considerable uptick over a holiday, like 4th of July holiday.
I did not receive one complaint over the 4th of July holiday.
Whoa.
I complained about the dog across the street.
The dog. I apologize. There wasn't anything submitted via online complaint form. So, I'm trying to think of the other 3-day weekends that happened this year. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. But the first one that comes up is the 4th, and I didn't get anything on the online complaint form.
Okay, so Max, you're tracking all of this, right? So that you can make a report in the end about all of them. Okay. Would it help if we ask that if possible, that you go on the online complaint form? That's the best way to contact you. Is that okay? All right.
Yep, that is my number one. I direct people towards that because then you can supply pictures and videos. I believe videos. I think I sent a video once, but pictures for sure.
Would that also be true if it's 10 o'clock and there's a problem with noise in the hot tub and they've called the agent and the agent doesn't respond? You'd still want them to fill out a form versus that night calling you?
Or or both?
So if it's noise, and the agents don't pick up, I think, you could send something to me on the complaint form, and, with noise too, you can also call non-emergency, police, and someone will arrive.
Well, from all of us, thank you again. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you for having me. Glad to see everybody.
I think we should publicize and celebrate the work that you do and the lack of work you have to do. Not that you're not busy. The 500 compliance checks are amazing.
So I'm hoping to get Chris and the next president of this or chair of this committee in front of the council, because I think that's the kind of report that the council needs to hear. And it's because of all of the hard work the short-term rental group has done in terms of getting Max here, the education outreach, all of those, the kind of information that has come out of this committee, I think is really responsible for a great deal of the diminishment of complaints and the fact that as a city councilor, I just don't hear it anymore. During summer, that may change, but at this point, people aren't emailing me, picking up the phone and calling me, and that's very different than it was last year.
Cheryl?
I was wondering, do we have a way, if the first step of this complaint process is for them to call the renter or the neighbor to call the agent, do we have any way of tracking how many calls agents are getting about these kinds of things? No. So we don't know. Okay.
Right. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. Thank you, Max. You can
Thanks, Max.
stay or
Thank you,
go.
everybody.
I'm guessing you're going.
Thank you.
You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank
You
you.
too.
I just want to introduce the new members, or actually have you introduce yourselves. Just give us a quick little minute or two, who you are, why you're here, why you chose to be on the committee. Let me start with Leslie. We'll also introduce ourselves, so we'll start with Leslie.
My name is Leslie Bagan. We have owned a house here for 12 years. And a year and a half ago, we retired. And so we are now full-time residents. And it was certainly time to use my skills in any way I can to help the city of Manzanita. And so here I am.
Thank you. Julie?
Julie Johnson, and recently retired market research consultant. And we built our house in Manzanita in 2020 after renting there for probably 20 years, and lived there full time for a year. And then my husband started going back into the office, so we're splitting our time between Lake Oswego and Manzanita now. And just wanted to be on the short-term rental committee because I think it's an interesting topic. It's not an easy solution to any of the issues. And I grew up in a small beach town, so I'm just thoroughly aware of all of the issues. And I love Manzanita, so I just want to see it work.
Thank you.
That's about it.
Okay, Dan, hopefully you got a good look at Danielle.
Sorry, guys. You can't see me when I'm speaking. I moved out into the hall here because it's a little loud. I'm in the hospital cafeteria. So my name is Danielle Johnson. I'm the owner of Manzanita Beach Getaway Vacation Rentals. I have been in business in Manzanita for about 15 years. And I was on the previous short-term rental committee as well. And I'm just really honored to be back on again to help, because I think we did such great work. And then I kind of would like to be on it when we're not in COVID, because that was hard, challenging, hard, rewarding. But I'm kind of excited to be on it after that's sort of over. But yeah, and we manage about 58 properties in Manzanita and Neoconi only. We don't do anything outside of the area. So we're kind of really dedicated to the Manzanita area.
Thanks. And just a brief word from each of the let's call them tenured. I learned in HR, you don't say old employees.
Thank you.
Michael?
Okay, you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Well, I'm on a iPhone too, so I'm kind of probably have the same technical issue there. But yeah, Michael Duncan, been on the committee now for a couple of years. Been in Manzanita, started building our house, kind of similar story in 2020. We've been living here full time ever since it was built. Got a family here in town, and also have a short-term rental. So kind of ticking all the boxes there. And in my, the perspective outside of the full-time resident family and STR owner manager perspective that I bring, I also in work do a lot of policy work and implementing those policies. So this felt like a good fit for me. So my skill set. So happy to be part of it.
Michael is just exceptional in the policy area. If you read the long, detailed description of policy focus of the short-term rental information we presented to council, that was primarily due to Michael's work. He's just extraordinary in that, and that's a real advantage to this committee.
Thanks.
Shara?
Yeah, hard act to follow, Michael. My name is Cheryl Ogburn, and I have owned a home in Manzanita for 35 years. And recently, in the last few years, my husband and I retired, so we're spending more and more time there. And we just went through a big remodel on our little cabin. And I got involved a couple of years ago because I felt like it was just the right time, because of the town. Over the years, we've seen it grow and change and morph. And I felt like we had reached a point where it was time to manage STRs in maybe a different light. And I thought I could bring my perspective as a long-term part-time resident. We don't rent our homes, but we have rentals around us. And that I'm kind of like all of the rest of you, committed to the community and want to work to represent the community, but yet achieve that balance, because we know how important STRs are to our community as well.
Bill?
Bill Mannon, I'm the liaison person between the Planning Commission and the STR Committee. I've been a property owner since 1975, full-time down here since 2007. And I think the STR Committee is really important. I think you're the front line between homeowners and vacationers and City Hall, and how we keep Manzanita livable.
Yeah. Linda?
Linda Kozlowski, I'm the liaison from the City Council. I want to do a ditto to what Bill said. I think just the difference in the community's concerns and what comes to the top of the list of what they want to, what they're upset about. Short-term rental has really gone way down that list. And I think it's clearly because of the good work of the Short-Term Rental Committee.
And I'm Joe Newhouse. I was with Danielle on the original work group. I think when I applied to be on that committee, I had a house on 3rd Street that was still a short-term rental. But I don't remember. I might have already switched it over. It's now a long-term rental. But I wanted to be involved at that point because, like everybody else has said, we know that short-term rentals are important to the community, but we want balance. And I live in Pine Ridge, so that's in the UGB, and it was one of the few committees that I could actually be on, because I'm not a voter in the city, and it is my city too. So that was, I guess, one of the reasons I wanted to become involved. Michael Garner, you want to say anything about why you religiously come to our meetings? You don't have to if you don't want to, but.
I'm just want to be involved and concerned about the city issues in general. My wife and I own 2 homes in Manzanita. We've just finished a new home for retirement, and we have our older home that we've had for over 30 years as a short-term rental now. In fact, we use Danielle to manage our home.
Hmm.
And I just want to stay involved and abreast of what's going on, as well as provide input occasionally. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for showing up. Leela, I'll give you the same option.
I'm Leila Salmon, and when I served on as a city councilor, I was given the task of revamping the ordinance, which this committee has now revamped in such a way. I am completely in awe of the work that this committee has done in redoing what we thought in a small town was adequate. And I have followed this committee and applauded all of the hard work that you have done. Congratulations.
Thanks. Full disclosure, she's my mommy. So the next thing on the agenda is officers. And before I get to that, I just want, this is recorded, and just in case they ever listen to the recording, just a huge thank you to Patrick, Carol, and Jill, who were members of the committee until today. Yeah, just thanks. So the next thing on the agenda is officers. Carol was our vice president. We never did come up with a secretary, and that's something that, even though these meetings are recorded, are really needed. I was the head for about half the time for the work group, and I was the head for the short-term rental committee up until this point. And I'd like to pass the torch. So I would like to see the committee elect a new, it's president, by the way. I think it should be chairman, but the referendum says it's president. So new president, vice president, and secretary. And I think that should be the first order of business. We don't have Anupam with us, but we have the rest of the committee. I would also like to encourage you, or if the right word is nominate Cheryl. Having worked with her for the past couple of years, she's really good at organizing, and that's the main thing that the committee needs to have, is somebody in front to organize. So I'll start with president, and I would like to nominate Cheryl. Anybody else like to be president, or have any other people they would like to suggest?
I'd just like to second Cheryl's nomination. She was just outstanding.
Anybody? Okay, we can vote. By the way the ad hoc works is Phil can't vote, Linda can't vote. Everybody else gets to vote. And the easiest way is, Michael, you want to switch over to so we can see you and we can just do a show of hands?
Well,
Maybe.
I'm trying to.
Okay, just say yes or no, that'll work. So, we've nominated Cheryl. All in favor, raise your hand. It's the easiest way to do it. Okay, any opposed? Okay, Cheryl, you're it.
Thank you.
We need we
Do I say
need a
thank
vice
you?
president and a secretary, and then the next order of business.
Are you talking to me? Is this
I
effective
am. You're the
immediately?
president.
This is effective immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I had time to prep. Okay, vice president. Is there anyone who would like that job?
Can you tell
Um,
us what the job is?
I cannot, because I can't recall a time when we actually used a vice president as a role. Joe?
Well, basically, the vice president would run the meeting if the president wasn't around. I've managed to be around every time, so it was.
Oh, okay. There you go, Julie. I wasn't sure. So that would be the primary role. In my opinion, the position that we really need to make sure someone steps up for is the secretary, because we did not have our last committee, we did not have a secretary. And even though, like Joe said, they're recorded, there is a responsibility to have minutes taken. So I don't know. Michael, since you've been on the committee, do you have a desire to step in as an officer?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I did the VP. People, that makes sense. You know, kind of know the routine, and you know, Cheryl and I work well together, and you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
How's that?
I
How's that?
nominate Michael. I nominate Michael for VP.
Second, Michael.
For
Thank you.
vice president,
Yes,
I'd second that.
third it. All right. Anyone else interested? Nominee? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor of Michael? Raise your hand. Michael, say yes if you're there. All right. Michael.
Thank you.
So now the newbies are here for the secretary job, which is this is primarily keeping track of taking some notes on the minutes, and I correct me, Joe and Linda, if I'm wrong. I don't think it has to be a blow by blow, detail by detail, just the big ideas. And if there was a specific fact or something we wanted to make note of, we have that on record. Is that correct? Or Linda and Joe, you want to add to that?
That's correct, and it isn't published. It's sent to all of us so that we
Okay.
know what we talked about and what we need to talk about, but it isn't something that's posted online or because the meeting is recorded.
Okay, so then
It's not posted online, but it is public information. So if somebody
If somebody wants it, yes.
you know, for
Okay.
me on the notes, it's the to-dos are really important. What did we agree to do? Because you'd be amazed month by month how that kind of slips. So if we just, I mean, brief discussion about what happened, and then these are the things we agreed to do next time or in the future.
yeah, the action steps. And I think that's a good point, because one of the things we've learned over the last 2 years, that if you miss a meeting because life happens and we move forward with a discussion or an action, we come up with an action or to do, when you rejoin the group, it's important that you're brought up to speed to know that we've moved on from that. Because we did have, I think it's important that, you know, when we're here, we can make some choices, have some discussion around those things. And because as we've learned over the last couple of years, we can discuss a lot of things for a very long time because we have a lot of different opinions. So that is important for someone to take, kind of capture what the conversation was, and then the action steps or the to-dos. I guess first we'd ask, is anyone interested in this?
I can do it if it doesn't require shorthand or being a stenographer, but I can take notes.
All right.
I'll second Julie.
Yeah, all right. Quick, before she changes her mind. No, just kidding, Julie. All right, is anyone else interested? Vote for Julie. I vote for Julie. All right, Julie, you're there.
Woohoo.
All right.
Thanks,
Woohoo.
Julie.
Thank you, Julie, for stepping up. You won't be sorry. Well, no, you won't. I promise. Okay, Joe.
Yeah, that was kind of unfair of me, Cheryl.
It was, but I think I could handle that. But in terms of the agenda, I have to say I did not look at the agenda. I know what's on our agenda, but I don't know the order in which you want to do. So I'm going to turn it back over to you right now for that.
The next
okay?
and I'm going to pass it off again. The next thing on our agenda, and the most important thing we have to do in the next month or two, I'm going to let Linda explain, if that works, Linda. We presented to the council, and the council is going to meet a couple more times in workshop to talk about our two-tiered plan, our growth plan, and our growth options, and then the proximity. but there were a lot of questions about occupancy and why didn't you suggest anything for occupancy? So I asked at the end of the meeting, can we give you some quick ideas that you can add to that discussion? And at the time of the meeting, the answer was no, but that has changed somewhat. And I think, Linda, you can explain exactly what the council would like to see us put together in the very near future.
Yeah, so I met with the mayor just to make sure we were all on the same page. And what the mayor wants, which I totally agree with, is once we agree on a package, that it not be something we go back and change in the next couple of years. So this package will last for at least the next 2 or 3 years. Occupancy is a critical issue. So if we can come up with something that we can add to the discussion, the council would really love to hear it. I guess the issue is it needs to happen before the short-term rental changes are agreed to. I expect that to be another 3 months. I don't think that's going to happen in the next couple. So we have some time, but we really need to be on top of it as soon as possible.
And just to give you a background on occupancy, currently 10.3 says that we allow 2 people per bedroom plus 4. So a 3-bedroom house could have up to 10 people sleeping in it. There's also the Tillamook County, which is the unincorporated area, just came up with a new ordinance, and it's 2 per bedroom plus 2, plus up to 4 children under the age of 12. So it gets a little cumbersome and complicated, but that's what they do. I looked at a couple other cities. Bend does 2 per bedroom, period. That's it, that's all. Cannon Beach says 3 per bedroom. I'm not quite sure how they do that, but that's what they say. So there's all kinds of things we can do. We can talk about with occupancy. One of the things that someone brought up in the council meeting was, can it be tied? And we talked about that too. Can it be tied to our proximity measurement where we said, you know, we have a halo of 15 or so homes, and within that, which is 100 yards in either direction, 100 feet. Within that 100 feet, we suggested 5 short-term rent, no more than 5 short-term rentals. In our committee, we talked about, well, what if we say homes with 5 or more bedrooms count as 2 of the 5? So that's an option to consider. And I'm sure that there are other options. One other option was to look at the number of people in the halo and that could be in a short-term rental, which would get, I think, really complicated for the staff to try to do. But again, it's a suggestion. So that's kind of where we're at. And what we need is some options that we can all kind of say, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that doesn't make sense. So that's our goal for the next couple months.
So can I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
add a couple things? It's kind of off this. First of all, Joe, if you would explain what your role is over the next couple of months, that would be really helpful. And then secondly, for the new members, this is really a consensus building group. I mean, no ideas are bad ideas. Questions are really expected. What the kind of history of this committee is, we all kind of work together and throw different ideas out, and then ultimately work to a solution that we can all agree to. So please, even though you haven't been involved with it before, feel really comfortable in participating and asking questions or throwing out something that you're not sure is right, but you've been thinking about it. So Joe, if you tell us first about what your role is.
I'm a committee member for the next, I don't know, couple months, 3 months, probably not past that. But I want to see this package that we put together followed through. because because I was involved with it, so. So I'm not saying I quit now, Cheryl, it's all yours, but at some point before the end of the year, I will step down from the committee, and then you can find somebody new that would like to be involved.
Thanks, Joe.
Can I mention something about occupancy? I had reviewed what is on the website and how many permitted people were allowed in these short-term rentals. And it seemed, I found lots and lots of discrepancies, 22 actually, where it looked like they were allowing more people and it wasn't compliant to the number of bedrooms +4. And I am not 100% sure how accurate it was finding the number of bedrooms per house. That can be a little complicated. I did look at different real estate websites to see how many bedrooms it notated. And there were 22 discrepancies where it, according to the website online, it allowed more people than there should have been. I spoke to Chris about it, and he asked me to fax over the information. And I'm not really sure where that ended up, but I figure we should make sure that that's accurate to begin with, you know, before moving forward. And it didn't appear very accurate, and I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe it's, you know, just communication, as you had mentioned earlier, Joe.
So Leslie, are you talking about that city Excel sheet where it lists like the addresses and number
Yes.
of bedrooms?
Yes.
And then what were you comparing that to?
Well, it doesn't tell you how many bedrooms. It tells you how many people are permitted to
Right.
be in the house for rentals.
Okay.
So I took those addresses and I looked at real estate, like at least 2 different real estate
Like
information.
Zillow and stuff like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I just was curious. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I determined according to these real estate websites, how many bedrooms were in those homes.
So you didn't go to the website that was advertising it as a short-term rental.
No,
You
No.
went to, okay.
I went to the real estate websites. No, I didn't look there. There were other ones that had less amount of people, but most of them had 1 to 2 extra people that, according to my information, they should not have had. So in other words, like a 3-bedroom house, that would be 6, 10. A lot of them said 12. Those kind of things.
Okay.
Now,
Well, I do
might
think
be-
that brings up a point. That's good to know. And I think that that's information we need to look at. I also think if you look at the ordinance, Joe, do you have it in front of you about the sleeping dwelling? Because I mean, I think that brings some question. There is some ambiguity in that, in some sense, about what parts of the house could be used as a sleeping
Yeah.
area. And I'm not sure whether on the permit it's registered as a sleeping area or not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's something to look at when we look around us, because other communities have defined sleeping areas, which Joe and I had a conversation why we don't call it bedroom, but the Oregon, what's the name of the law, Joe?
The Oregon Residential Specialty Code
refers it to a sleeping room, but I think what we're all talking about, and when we look at cities around us, they use the term bedroom. So maybe we could slide that in so we're clear.
Yeah.
So
the
the Manzanita definition, and I think this is part of the problem with Zillow too, but the Manzanita definition says a sleeping room. In other words, the Manzanita ordinance says we can have 2 people per sleeping room plus 4 people. So, and then it defines sleeping room as a fully enclosed, that's important, habitable space with a heat source and an emergency egress or rescue opening meeting the minimum standards of the Oregon Residential Specialty Code. And then the specialty code says that a sleeping unit is a single unit that provides rooms or spaces for one or more people, including permanent provisions for sleeping, and can include provisions for living, eating, either sanitation or kitchen facilities, but not both. Such rooms and spaces that are also part of a dwelling unit are not sleeping units. So that's what
Okay.
we're working with. And Tillamook has a different definition and they call them bedrooms. So I think that's something that we have to look at, like Cheryl was saying.
Great.
I also would love, Leslie, if you could go back to those 22
Uh-huh.
and look at the short-term rental website, because they may say, you know, when you say that Zillow says 12, the website might say 10. And in that case, I don't care what Zillow says.
Right. No, I agree, which is why I kind of looked, I didn't only look at Zillow. I tried to look at 2, sometimes 3.
But
websites,
again, I think what's important is the
the
rental page.
definition. Yeah.
The rental page.
Yes, I
Well,
agree. I will do that.
I also think this brings up the point is we need to look at the issue here straight up on occupancy. The number, it seems to me there's just a couple of points about this, that when we looked at Seaside and Bend and the Tillamook County regulations, there's the number of people that can be in a bedroom. There's if you're going to have any extras. And if you have those extras, are they adults? Are they children? Are they whatever? And then, and Phil, then I'm kind of interested in your take. I know you're on the planning commission, but from the code perspective of safety, fire safety, and what we want to think about in terms of a sleeping area, how that would play out. Thoughts?
Well, what I'm concerned about.
I'm sorry. Fully enclosed. I'm not sure what that means. Can
A
some
door.
a
A
door?
loft is.
Four walls and an entry egress.
Yeah,
So somebody's living room could be fully enclosed with a door?
probably not. I mean, because it's a pretty strange living room that has 4 walls and a door.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But it would be more than likely to have a door. I mean, obviously. The house next door to me is like 625 square feet and they allow 8 people. They have 2 bedrooms, so that's 4 and plus 4, so 8.
Right.
And I wonder if we should look also at the square footage of a house as something else to look at, because that seems like a lot of people in a small house.
You
Well,
want
I
to be,
think, go ahead, Phil. Go ahead, Phil.
you want to be careful what roads you go down, because you may get into a situation where you're starting to rewrite codes, and that's very expensive.
I agree.
And so what you want to do is you want to try and tailor whatever you're doing to the code that is in place, and try and work with that as opposed to tilling new ground.
So in other words, keeping the occupancy the same.
Not necessarily. I mean, you can tweak it. For example,
Yeah.
We're kind of hung up here between what is a sleeping room and what is a bedroom. To me, a bedroom is a real estate term, and Danielle can correct me if I'm wrong, but it consists of 4 walls, and then entry exit point by door, and it has to have a closet. What else, Danielle?
You're not going to see me now. No, that's exactly it. I mean, the real estate term, with having a building background myself, yeah, you got to have a closet. You've got to have 4 walls and a door. I think the thing to note just really fast while I have the floor is the county's way of figuring occupancy is not easy. So and I don't know if everyone would agree with me, but when they put out these new regulations, there is no way in our PMS software, so our property management software, there is no way to say you can have 2 people per bedroom, and +2, and then you can have 3 kids under the age of 12. Like, there's nowhere to advertise that. The software doesn't work that way. It gives you a solid number for occupancy and allows you to input that. So how we've worked around that is we don't even tell people about the 3-kid rule for the county houses. We just go by the 2-bedroom, 2 per bedroom +2 rule, and we just stick with that. And if someone calls and says there's a baby, then we'll allow it because we know we can. So it's very awkward how they set things up. The mass majority of houses that are short-term rentals, from what I've seen, are managed, and they're managed by property software. And that software doesn't allow for that weird denominator that they made up. So it's very odd, and hard to sort of navigate when you're managing 58 houses and you're trying to keep track of extra children and things of that nature. With that side note, I think it's important to know that occupancies will almost never match with our company, and we're always lower than the occupancy. And it's because we have our own formula, which is less than what the city typically allows, because we don't overcrowd our vacation rental homes.
Danielle, what is your policy?
I kind of follow the 2 per bedroom +2, but not for every house. Some houses, like I have a house that's almost 5,000 square feet. That's a really big house. And it has 6 bedrooms. So we actually do the 2 per bedroom +4 rule. And we keep that because we have enough room for all of those people in proper bedrooms. We don't use lofts. We don't use open spaces. We don't use living rooms. So in that particular house, that calculation works for us. It does not work for us in most houses. It seems to be just a tad much. And I'm probably going to get a lot of nasty emails after saying that. But I think that for us, we try to err more on the lesser side. And it's because we want to be good neighbors, and we don't want a ton of cars, and we don't want a ton of noise. And so, for us, that's work, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So I think it's important to note that the county kind of made things a little tough for us with that weird kid rule. Because I don't know about you, but my 11-year-old weighs more than I do, and he's taller than me. So he's still an adult. He can't sleep in a tiny bed. So to me, that just seems like a really weird rule. But so my occupancies aren't really going to match. They're actually going to probably be a little bit less than what the city has allowed us. So I don't know if that was something that you were finding when you were searching Zillow and online, that they were less, or were they all more? If they're all more, that's a problem.
The majority were more, although
Okay.
absolutely, I did not check to see who was managing these places, which I certainly can do. There were a few that were less, but the majority were more.
I love that you looked into that. And that's the kind of stuff that I like to do when I've got a minute as well, is kind of look those over, because I think it's good. It takes a community, it takes a village, and we all make mistakes. I mean, I've put things on our website by accident, or my crew has, that were not accurate. And so as long as there's eyes on things and we're watching out, I think that's important.
Well, I didn't do it to tax people, I did it to we should have accurate data on the City of Manzanita website, I think.
Absolutely. A couple of things. One, I think, again, Redfin, Zillow, according to them, I have a 1-bedroom house. Those of you who have been in my house know it's not a 1-bedroom house.
Right.
But that's what it says on Zillow, and that's what it says on Redfin, because I don't know, it does, but I like it because my taxes are lower. I think that when Cheryl and I were talking last night, one of the things we were talking about is the kids, and that's an option. Maybe an option is to say 2 per bedroom +2 adults over the age of 12. And then kids are kids. If they bring 5 kids, they bring 5 kids, but anybody over the age of 12 counts. And then you don't, then that would, Danielle, would that work with your software?
See, I don't know that I think I understood you right. See, I don't know that I agree with that. I think we have to be really careful here. I think the way that the city has the 2 per bedroom plus 4 is not terrible. I think it's good actually. But with that said, when you start doing this whole calculation for you can have as many kids as you want, trust me, I've had that scenario where you get multiple families in a house and you end up with way more kids than adults. And it creates more traffic, more chaos in the neighborhood. I have 3 children. I love my children, but they're loud and they can cause, a little upset in the neighborhood. So again, I think I like the way the city states things. It's 2 per bedroom plus 4. That goes for every age. If you read that ordinance, it's down to the baby. It's per head. And I really like that because it covers a broad spectrum of ages and there's no weird denominator. It's just straightforward.
Bill, you have your hand up?
Want to ask Danielle a question. With that in mind, are you finding a lot of your tenants are going over the amount of people that is set up for that particular house because they're not counting kids?
That's a great question, Phil. And yes, we do get that where people don't understand that it's per head. And so that's my office's job. I mean, we physically talk to every guest when they book. If they book online, it's an immediate phone call from my staff. That's just how we do things. And that's how we're able.
We have to come up with a policy.
Correct.
For
Correct.
everybody. Yeah.
Correct. Again,
Phil?
Joe, it's about education. And education starts at the people that are managing the homes, I think.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Phil.
I think this is a place to start. The +4 to me is loose. I think that needs to be tightened up. So that you're definitely counting the number of heads that are in the house as opposed to, oh, well, the kids come in and they ride free. I think
Yeah.
that will have a tendency to draw the total occupancy down.
You have to
think-
also remember there's fire code. So if you go by 2 per room plus 2, and then you can have as many children as you want, that just opens the city up and everybody up for lawsuit. Because if somebody gets hurt because there's too many people in the house, that's kind of why I liked Manzanita's rule of it's per head, not age on the age thing.
Right. I want to stop for a minute because I think it's important to remember. I don't know if everybody watched the presentation we did last. I don't even remember when it was. I guess it was a week ago. Yeah. One of the things that came up is the issue. We approached density around the proximity with the thought of our work that we needed to kind of look into occupancy because that's a critical role. Because we, just as our discussion, I think it matters if there are 4 5-year-olds in a house or 4 adults. And I think that's a lot of people. And what I heard from the counselors last week is that we need to look closely at occupancy because they felt that some houses, there was just too many people in those houses. And I know I want to be mindful of the time because I know we're getting to we have to stop at noon. Is what I'd like us to think about is what we maybe, Joe, if we send out the information we talked about last night, what the county says, what the neighboring community says to committee members, or they can look it up, but this just might be easier. It would help us frame a conversation around like, what do we think occupancy should be? Because I think also have learned that we need to have something that is enforceable. And I think and I would hope it could be enforced at Danielle's level, at the rental agency level would be where I would see the first stop is that's the responsibility in her business, as she said, where we say, this is how many people can be in this house. I don't think we ought to leave it up to Max to try to figure out, or someone else, who goes where in those houses. So I'd like to come up with something that's pretty clear about how many people can sleep in that house. And I personally, I think the children is a very muddy issue, because then you're counting children, and who's counting children, and I don't know. So
Also, to
I'd like to
remember
hear from Julie and other people. Julie, go ahead.
And Michael has
also
his
to
hand up
remember
too.
that children
Michael.
can include teenagers, which means cars. Yeah, so you're increasing cars immediately then. And I mean, I know that the implementing the halo with the occupancy makes it complicated, but I think there's certainly reason to look at that. I mean, on my block alone, we have 9 short-term rentals, which could result in 90 people being there at any one time on one block. So, the idea of not looking at that just doesn't make sense to me, but I understand that it's going to be tricky. So, but that's just in counting short-term rentals. So if you add in the people who are just owners, then you could have over 100 people there on a given weekend. So,
Joe,
also
Michael's hand
think-
has been up for a while. Michael's hand has been up for a while.
yeah.
oh,
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, I can't see it.
Yeah,
Michael?
Sure. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And I figured out how to, maybe Danielle will know this too. If you tap the screen, the main screen, not the safe driving mode screen, but the main screen, a tray comes up at the bottom and lets you raise hand, lower hand, talk. Although you're still not getting video of me because I'm sweaty and hot in a parked car. So I'll save you the gory details there. So, we're doing like what is great to have this conversation for one. Quantity, number of occupants has been on my radar for a long time. So I'm really glad that we're here doing it. We're also doing one of the things that this group does best, which is generate ideas. And it's one of the things that we also always need to be mindful is that we're not jumping to solutions yet until we've really defined what the problem is. And so one of the things that I found really helpful, and I would advocate for carrying this framework forward, is a policy framework where you have the problem statement, or you identify the need, and we're all on the same page what that need and what the issue is, and then we have an objective, what we're trying to accomplish. Is it measurable? Sometimes it's squishy, like livability, like that means a lot of different things to people, but it doesn't stop us from trying to make it better. But sometimes there's some quantitative metrics in there too that we can try to address too. So what does that look like? What are the objectives? So define the need, what are the objectives? And then we can craft a policy and start thinking about how we can implement that policy with some of the solutions that we're talking about. Whether it's on the management side of things, or maybe it's with an updated ordinance that decreases, increases, or retools the language in there. But I just want to make sure that we have some structure to this, because I'm hearing a lot of good ideas, but I don't want the call to end and then we come back and talk about those ideas. As far as next steps, maybe it's worth starting a Google Doc and throwing some. It's always easier for folks to react to something versus trying to start from scratch. So maybe I can toss something on there and we can try to retool it, or say yes, that's what we're talking about, or no, that's not, and then go from there and just have an idea pool, and then come back and kind of talk through those to make sure that the solutions that we're creating are addressing the problem that we're facing.
Brilliant. And it made me think of something. What is our objective? What is my objective? To me, is my objective to cut down on the occupancy of every single house, or is my objective to cut down on the 14, 15, and 16 people occupancy? I'm not sure of my answer yet, but that's two very different objectives. So, if my objective turns out to be, it's really the huge houses, not the average house with the 10 people or the 12 people. Another thing that Cheryl and I did last night was count how many of those there were. There's 3 4 houses that are 16, 3 that are 16, 1 that's 18. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
I thought there were 10.
10 14s. So what the county did was say, yeah, the maximum's 14 no matter what. So maybe that's something to look at too. But I think, Michael, you're just so on point. First, we need what's the need, what's the objective? And then we can come to the policy. And I would be into a Google Doc if you want to put one together.
Yeah, I definitely can do that. I'll send it out to the group. Is the STR group updated with everybody's?
It is
Okay.
updated.
Okay, great. I'll do
So,
that.
Michael, Joe, if you could send Michael those notes we took
Yeah, I
on
will.
send him that. And then when people comment on the Google Doc, if you could make your comment as a suggestion, so you don't comment on the body of the text in the document, we found that that helps everybody move along faster. Is that making sense? No? Yes.
Like as a comment, Cheryl? Is that
Yeah, as a comment. So
Instead
instead
of-
of
Or at
editing,
this point, is it just to add, here's my
Got it.
idea. Here's
'Cause
my
that's-
idea.
it's
Here's
so
my idea.
complicated. Yeah.
the comment works better because it doesn't
Okay.
change the body of the text for the next person who's coming in. Does
But
that make
right
sense?
now,
Because
right now, we're getting a list of all of the options, so it's,
Right.
I think it's down the line, once we narrow that, I think comments would be great. But right
But
now, I'm thinking it's like a brainstorming session.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
you would.
One
So-
of the things I'm thinking about is I'd like to look at a proximity group and limit the number in that proximity group. So, there are lots of ideas that we can throw out. And I think, and I may be wrong, so comment on that, but I think this is these are all ideas. And then our next session might be limiting those or narrowing those to things that are actionable, appropriate, and get to our objective.
Okay.
And I think where the
that-
comments come in is when someone puts up an idea, someone else can comment and say, this is great, or that won't work because.
Right, right.
Okay. I misunderstood. I thought you were going to present like what the county said policy is and what other policies were. And that's the part I didn't think we should edit. I thought we
Right.
should just comment on.
Right.
For me, it seems to me the sleeping area to me is confusing to me. I don't really, a confined area with egress, basically, right? And a closet
Yeah.
for a sleeping area?
No,
No.
well, it can have a clothes rack according to Tillamook. In that document that you'll see, I got what Tillamook definition is, what the Oregon Residential Code definition is, and what the Manzanita definition is. And if we can find some other definitions, we should probably try to find them too.
Yeah, yeah.
what's the timeline that we're trying to turn this around in? Just so I can
Where?
think back.
Remember, it's short, guys.
Okay. Noted.
Yeah, the council doesn't want to do this twice. They want to try to put it into the proximity and growth discussion.
And I'd say the maximum is 3 months. So just like the discussion today, I think we need more than just 3 meetings, is my sense.
Well, why don't we'll get the Google Doc up. I don't know. I guess my thought is, do we want to try to use next meeting to kind of hash out the comments and to get something shored up and then meet in between the second and third? It almost feels like it'd be helpful to have a one-off working group meeting between next to really solidify some ideas. So the second meeting is really more of polishing what we have, and then the third is final. I don't know. I just worry that we're going to get to that third meeting and
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think that sounds good, Michael. Would that work for everyone to have a work kind of session before our next meeting, which I don't even know the date of right now?
That would be the third Thursday.
The 15th of August.
That's the next meeting date.
The 15th is of August,
And that's a Friday or a Thursday?
Thursday. Did I say Friday? Let me check.
Yeah, it's
It's the
16.
16th, yeah.
Yes,
16.
Okay. We can do some
Oh, sorry.
scheduling
Sorry.
offline, you know, doodle poll, or I mean Fridays. So I mean it's my day off, so that'd be the day that I can do things other than a weekend day.
Well, what about
Maybe
next?
What about next Friday, the 26th? Is that too soon?
um I don't have my calendar, you know, I'm unfortunately in a car.
Yeah.
I want to say I've got like a dentist or a doctor appointment. Like they're so hard to, you got to schedule them so far out. Do you want to do the scheduling thing offline, or is it important to try to pin down a day now?
I can't make it on the 26th.
Okay, what about,
No, go ahead.
Second?
That's second.
yeah,
I was going to say if it's 2 Fridays from now, that'll give everyone a week and a half or so to comment on the Google Doc. That feels like enough time to generate comments, and
that's August 2nd.
that, okay.
Mhm.
So what about 10 o'clock on August the 2nd?
Okay.
Works for
Okay.
me.
Joe, can
Yeah.
we go to your house?
Sure.
And in person?
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be nice.
Yeah,
We
we
can
can-
do Zoom. If for somebody that can't come, we can do Zoom, but in-person meetings really are good, are helpful.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to make the 2nd.
Okay.
I have a-
I
At
can
all?
do Zoom, but not in person.
I can do it I can probably do a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll have a
We'll
hybrid
have a
setup.
Zoom. We'll have a
Okay.
Zoom option for sure.
So that I have it clear, we're meeting on the 2nd of August, 10 a.m. at Joe's house.
Yes.
Thanks,
Okay.
Joe.
I'll put that in the document too, my address.
Okay,
you-
Joe, I'll send
So
you
you can
the
see my 1-bedroom house.
Yeah.
My house says 3 bedrooms, and I should really correct that because it's really only 2 bedrooms. So I get it. I know it's not always accurate.
So Joe, before you send it out, I'm going to send you the Zoom so you can add the Zoom link to it.
Okay.
So just to go over, before, we're all in agreement that before we meet on the 2nd, we'll review that document that Joe and Michael are sending out and make comments on it. So the point of the meeting on the 2nd would be to kind of refine that discussion down a little and see if we have a more solidified kind of discussion for our following meeting. And maybe even make some decisions at the following meeting.
That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
The August 15th you're talking?
The 16th.
August 16th.
Sorry, I broke down.
Is that a Zoom meeting or is that an in-person meeting, the 16th?
Right now it's a Zoom, but it doesn't, I mean, we can do both depending on how Joe.
Yeah,
feels.
it kind of depends on Brad too.
Oh, because of the owl?
We need to learn how to use the owl.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay.
I think Danielle has her hand up.
Danielle has a comment.
Thanks, guys. This all works for me. I'm not sure where I'll be on August 2nd, but you know, if all else fails, I can definitely do the Zoom, I'm sure. I'm
Okay.
not sure if I'll be back home by then or not. I don't know. Everything's day by day. As far as so my question was, and I'm sorry, it's my brain isn't 100% right now. My question was, so are we addressing the occupancy in lieu of doing the 100-foot, or is that
Oh,
still something we're considering doing on top of changing or looking at the occupancy? What's the thoughts there?
It is in addition to it.
correct.
Okay, got it. That helps me. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I just texted Brad about the owl, so let me get back. Joe, you're sending it out, the information out?
I'm putting up the Google Doc that has our ordinance, Tillamook County's ordinance, what Ben does, what Seaside does. And then
Okay,
we can add our ideas too.
okay. And that's going to be an email out?
That's going to be a Google Doc. And so you can go onto the Google Doc and put here's what I think we should do on, and
Okay.
comment on other people's comments.
Okay, then I'll send out an email then that has the link, and we will confirm that we can have the owl.
Okay. Leslie, Danielle, and Julie, do you all have Gmail addresses? Are they Gmail that I have for you?
Hopefully you
I
do.
believe so.
Okay. Danielle's, is your Gmail address? Or is it a manzanitabeach.com?
No, it should, so my main email is a Gmail, but I have an old one. So which one do you have?
I
It's
just
not a
need one that
Gmail.
I can do a Google Doc link to.
Sure, it's Danielle.mbg for Manzanita Beach Getaway, HQ headquarters at gmail.com. So
Okay.
Danielle.mbghq@gmail.
Okay, thank you.
What do you have for me, Joe?
I don't know.
All right, I can give you mine.
All right.
Leslie Bagan, LES.
At Gmail. Yeah,
Okay, L.LCSW@gmail.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
All right. So is that it? Or do we have anything else we want to bring up? Any questions from the group? This is the quietest I've heard. All right. Should we, if there's nothing more, then maybe we can actually end early? Is that a thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. And Joe, thanks for just handing that off right there. That was
No
awesome.
problem.
It was an immediate transition. Thought I had a couple of months. Okay.
Bye all.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you.